Hi guys, this is our setting grade scales tutorial. Before I actually set them up with you, I want to make sure you understand their use and the difference. So scales can be used in two different ways. The first way is to actually assess a piece of student work. The second way is to report final grades. Now, you're going to notice that it defaults to a numeric value. Here's the good news. If you plan on grading however it is you've always graded, where it's just a percentage score, you get X number of points out of total value of points, and that's your percentage grade. You actually don't need to set up anything differently. However, if you want to be able to display a letter grade to your students, then instead of the numeric scale, you're going to want to switch to the default letter grade scale. And I just want to show you the differences on what that looks like. So what I did is in our materials here, at least on my materials, I made two sample assignments. And again, you can use the scale to assess work and to report work. So in this example, I used a number scale or the numeric scale to assess the work. And then in this one, I'll show you what the letter scale looks like. And instead of going into each assignment separately, I'll go into the gradebook and show you here. If you use the numeric scale, which is what this assignment used, you can just put a total point value out of however many, and it simply just calculates the percentage value of the total points. If you use the A plus minus scale, the letter grade scale, then again, you can put in the percentage value, but it also is going to tie a letter grade to whatever percentage value you've used in there. So for calculating and total purposes, it's going to use the numeric percentage value that's in there. But the difference here comes in with what the students see. So if I go and I'm going to look at this course as my student, and you're going to notice that when they look at their grades, if you're using a numeric scale and you just leave that default set, they're going to see their score 75 out of 100. That's what probably most of our students are used to, and that's fine. If you want them to be able to see the letter grade that corresponds with that point value, then you're going to want to switch over to the letter grade scale. So that way they can see that letter grade along with their point value score. Again, calculation-wise, it's all calculating based off of a percentage. And when we send these assignments over to PowerSchool, it's going to send our assignment name and that percentage, that 75%. So if this was a 50-point assignment, it would actually end up sending the percentage scored over to the report, to the grade book based on that 50-point value when it calculates it over there. So it doesn't matter which scale you use, pick which one is best for you. And again, to change those, you're going to go into your grade setup, and then these are the scales that are available for you to use when assessing work. This is where you set which scale you want to actually report out to your students from in the gradebook and in their view. Okay, now you can actually get a lot more detailed with these. So what I'm going to say here is if you are going to stick to one of the pre-built traditional scales, you don't need to watch this video any further. Set the scale that you want to report with and know that you can grade standard percentages no problem. If you are looking to create some custom scales, that's what the rest of this short tutorial will show us. So in order to create a custom scale that you can use to assess work or to report out on work, you're going to want to go ahead and click on Add Scale. And when we add scale, we have two different choices. A percentage-based scale. This is similar to the letter scale, and that's why I don't like how it's labeled, but this is similar to that letter, that A plus minus scale, meaning I'm going to just call this my scale 1, so we'll title it whatever it is, but this is a letter scale, so you can set your custom ranges for those letters. So in theirs, they had an A plus, and you can put whatever you want to, tied to the range of 96 to 100%. So that if a student scored anywhere in this percentage range, this is what would get calculated, and this is what would show up next to it as the letter score. Now here's what's kind of nice about this. You're not stuck to using just A plus, B plus. If you wanted to switch to more of a standards-based style and say that this was our advanced range, and you could set your advanced range to show up 90 to 100%. maybe you wanted just a basic range, or maybe a proficient to be the label, and you say, well, that's my 80 to 90 range, and when they score in here, I'm going to give them an 89 as the calculated value. Now you can set up as many of these as you want to and save those changes, but you do need to make sure that you have the whole 100-point scale covered. So if I add a final level and I call this emerging, and I say anything under an 80 is still emerging, so however many levels you want, make sure that you cover 0 to 100 and tell it what value it should use to calculate. And when we save that now, I'll have my custom scale created. You'll notice I can use that as my actual reporting scale in my gradebook. And if I go back to my materials, and let me show you the difference here. So if I switch this numeric scale from using my numeric scale to my scale that I just created, then what that looks like when I go to grade, whether it be in the assignment or in my grade book, that scale now shows up here exactly as I created. So you see how it's similar to the letter-based scale, except I've customized both the ranges and the labels that go with it. Now the thing to know here is it's still going to use that numeric value in calculating total overall score, but when the student looks at it, they're going to see, just like they did in that letter scale, they're going to see that label. And here's what's really cool, I think. When you are working in these, you'll notice that when we were in grade setup and we had our scale that we were editing, we had our extra this box here that said only show letter grade. And here's what that does. When you only show the letter grade and you go back and view it as a student, and I know I'm bouncing around a lot here, but stick with me. But when they look at that grade here, if I have that box checked, notice it doesn't show that calculated percent here. It only shows the label. So if you are someone that's trying to go more to a mesh of standards-based style, this is how you could do that and start to get to that pretty easy. Now, if you want them to see their scores, then you're going to want to not click that box so that they can see their label and their score. Again, if you don't need custom labels, just stick to their letter grade one as your default category so that you can apply that simply. Okay, and then finally here, if I go back to my grade setup and I add another scale, the other scale that I can add is simply a point-based scale. And what you can do with this one, I'll just call this point-based. A point-based scale is where you can say, if I have a level 4 student, I'm going to call them advanced. And then if I have a level 3 student, I'm going to call them proficient. So this is another way to kind of mesh the worlds of standards-based and traditional grading. For most of us, I think we're going to be traditional, so I don't think any of this will apply. That's why I kind of cut the tutorial off earlier. But if you're looking to go into more of this type of thing, you can go ahead and create that scale. Now I have a point-based scale, and again, if I apply it to an assignment so that you can see what that looks like, if I used my custom created scale, you're going to see that when I look at the gradebook, that assignment now, I can just label these with what they are. Now, a word of caution using this scale, as you see the points drop way down. Just because I label them as a 2 basic, what I'm actually saying, if I give them a 2 on this 4-point assignment, right, because it tailors everything back to a 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm actually saying they're a 50% scale in a traditional sense. So if you're saying, hey, you have basic understanding, the gradebook's going to say you have a 50% F. And so you want to be careful using that kind of grade scale if you're working. So again, to wrap up, if I go back to my grade setup, what I would recommend for most of us is to stick to their letter-based or numeric-based scale. So that's a traditional gradebook scale through and through. You don't have to make any changes. If you are trying to figure out how to walk the line between standards and traditional, then you can create your own scale. These scales can be used to apply to an assignment or to report out. If you have any questions on this, because I know this is going to vary course by course and teacher by teacher, please reach out to me and I will be happy to help. All right, thanks guys.